Okay, so welcome everybody to the Open Source Committee meeting today, May 17th. On the agenda here today, we'll go over any updates from the Policy Working Group, Security Working Group, Project Framework, Project Incubation. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on here at the Open Source Office team here at Intersect. New business, we're going to hear some more about MatterBridge and whether or not that's something that we want to move towards or work towards. We're going to discuss archiving communications. There'll be a brief update here about some members area testing for Intersect. That has to do with our website. We'll talk about the next upcoming meeting, since that does deal with consensus, and then an open forum for anything else. Just like we did last week, though, we will go through the seats of the committee here. Just as a reminder, we'll mention who we are, what we do. I'll start with myself. I'm Terrence, or Tex McCutcheon, as you may see it, and I am the Open Source Program Manager here at Intersect. And we'll pass it along to Nicholas, the chair.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm an engineering director at Modus Create, or who was Twig, and I've been involved in the technical core side of Cardano for quite a while. And then Sandeep, yes.
Hi everybody, I'm Sandeep. I'm from D Quadrant and been involved in Cardano, mostly on testing and Plutus development for a few years, and looking forward to contribute as much as I can. Next, Ronald.
We can't hear you, Ronald. I think it's on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute there, Ronald.
Really? I'm Ronald Span. I'm CEO of the Quadrant, and I'm also from the start with Intersect, Open Source Committee, basically contributing where we can, and that's it.
Christian, I think you round us out there.
Yeah, I'm Christian, head of the Open Source Office. Obviously, I'm affiliated with Intersect and everything open source. I'm kind of a catch-all for everything. And I'll hand it over to Adam. But real fast, Marchin's going to be late. His affiliation is the network team at IOI.
I am Adam Dean, representing Adam Dean LLC. And I've done a little bit of absolutely everything in the Cardano ecosystem up until this point, from running a stake pool to minting NFTs and a little bit of everything in between. So, happy to be here and kind of help guide the ship as we walk into this decentralized future together.
All right, before we pass right back to you there, Adam, Solona, let me just grab your input real quick. Is this in line with what we're looking for, or is there anything that we should be adding for these introductions?
I take that as a win.
Okay. So we'll move right into Adam there with Policy Working Group. What do you got for us?
Sorry about that. Google keeps kicking me out of meetings, and I don't understand why. I get kicked out of at least every meeting twice if it's a Google meeting. It's not my network. I have a very good network connectivity. There's something weird with Google. So on the affiliations, yes, the main thing is like who you are and what your roles are. To get ready for y'all to do the antitrust portions is everyone needs to say who they are and what companies they work for. So like for me, it's like I actually am dual now because I'm Solona Bohmwald. I own Leading Bit Solutions. I am contracting to IOG to help create the decentralized ecosystem lifecycle process. But I'm also now a Cardano participant because I submitted a project to Catalyst to do a meta tool to assist that in regard with both Lloyd and Adam Dean on stakeholders so that we can actually have a complete mapping of the stakeholders that's decentralized and edited by all of us. So now I'm double. Previously, I was just, I only had one affiliation, but now I have 2 affiliations. Does that make sense?
Makes sense here.
All right, cool. Thanks.
All right, so thanks a lot. Adam, you're up now.
Okay, yeah, in terms of setting policy and defining policy, one of the primary things that we've been working on recently is we actually established a new working group with members of the MCC and civics and a few other committees so that we can finally get down to clear-cut definitions, so that when we're talking about what is a committee, what is a working group, what is a task force within Intersect, we actually know what those are and what our policy is on either appointment or election to the positions. So it is kind of tied up with our self-governance and election policy that we had been working on. We had our first meeting on Monday. We have Matthew Capps, Mark Byers, a lot of Alex is going to be at least joining us for our next meeting as well. So we have a lot of really smart guys in the room and gals that are all working to get us a common definition and a common vocabulary, because that seems to be one of our biggest problems that we face so far, is a lack of clear definition amongst the community about what the heck it is that we're doing here. So we're going to start with good definitions, and then we can build out our framework from there. And I'm sure Salona will also be hopefully joining us for some of those meetings as well, and adding some of her thoughts in. So yeah, that's where we are with policy right now. I do need to get a regular meeting amongst the group who is active participants of this policy subcommittee, task force, working group, whatever we're going to call it, together so that we can put a regular calendar meeting on the board. I have not had an opportunity to do that, and I will try to rectify that in this next week.
Okay, perfect. And then if you can just update that spreadsheet, it was sent to the Slack for working groups. I don't know if you're a part of that, but we're trying to make sure that that's going to be updated so we can create Discord events for you if we need to, or at the very least that we have the Git book reference up to date. That being said, we can move on to security. Nick?
Yeah, so security working group is still mostly focused on defining the initial policy. We met yesterday to discuss that. Looking good, and we wanted to propose that to the full committee for sort of endorsement. And I see that there's been a few other comments, but I will share the link in here. We've also discussed this with Matt Davis at Intersect, who is likely to become the initial security manager. So that's the sort of the key point, who will organize, will actually do the administration on all of this. He's generally fine with it. He's checked it with Intersect, who would be, the Intersect board, who would be, I suppose, paying for a lot of this, and they seem generally good with it. So, yeah, share this. Thank you, Sandeep. Yeah, just saw Sandeep fixed an error in the thing. Yeah, so I don't know whether people would like time to take a look at this, or whether we can whether it's ready to vote on yet.
Should we do a 2-week review process and then take a vote on the next cadence, or?
That works fine.
Okay. And I'll list it in the Discord link for the working group as well.
Sandeep?
Yeah, on the document, how to deal with the TBDs?
So I guess I think there's only one, which is like how we vet and appoint people.
To my mind, that's something that we will. Yeah, it's a fair point. I think probably the initial process is get something set up, and it will largely be staffed by sort of people who are already known. Then I think the Security Council will probably be responsible for defining those policies. But it's a good point, and I can update that to make that clear.
Another thing was committer. I think we also need to define that committer to the repository, or there was something about committer that I remember.
There are, but ultimately it doesn't really. I mean, that's defined in other documents, so contributors are defined in a lot of the previous policies in the governance policies that Michael had put together. So we're not going to redefine them here. But it's a fair point that, the vetting.
Yeah, other than that, I am up for it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, I did list it in the Discord working group, so everyone can take a look.
If there's nothing else for security, we can move on to Bogdan and framework.
Yes, thank you. So we had the last meeting with the working group yesterday. It was a pretty good discussion. This was, if I'm not mistaken, the third meeting. Now we have a draft for the project lifecycle framework with all the stages being defined and also identifying set of criteria for each of the stage. Some goals that we have to pay attention to during each phase, and a set of actions that might be taken during this each stage. Yesterday, and thanks Ilona for that, it was a proposal actually to split the last stage, end of life stage, into two sub stages. Let's say one it's abandoned and the other one archived. So having the last stage sunset or end of life, something like this, and then these two. I will share the link to the document here in the chat. Let me put it here. So this is the document. If you don't have time to read through the entire document, I will share on the screen right now on diagram that is more self-explanatory. And also we'll take a snapshot and put in the document as well. Okay. So at this moment, what we have is more or less something like this: incubation, growth, maturity, decline, and sunset, with these two sub stages, let's say at the end, archived and abandoned. And just in a nutshell, for example, for the incubation, more or less what we have to think about during this stage is a kind of problem solution fit, setting the ground for the technical, security, and governance compliance, not completing yet all the checkpoints, but just starting to build a foundation for all these compliance items, and starting to how the community is going to be built. One thing that I want to highlight to you, at least in my opinion, that this end-to-end framework isn't linear. I would say, for example, from incubation could be the case when we go directly to decline. So if we are going to have a project that doesn't make too much sense for the outer world, this won't go to growth. So we have to think that sometimes from incubation, we can move directly to the end of the project, end of life. Then for growth, the main things that should be focused on will be scaling, preparation for scaling phase. So building the foundation for scaling, then more attention to the documentation and support, continuing with the community thing, so community development and governance. And here into the governance, as Silona said, could be stages. So depending on the number of the users or developers, so different growth, inside of growth, we might have stages for the governance. So governance isn't an one size fits all, depend on the stage inside of the growth. Then maturity is the plateau. Here we have to think how we might avoid or postpone as much as possible the decline, and think to some kind of innovation. So how can this project can be revitalized somehow? So building for future, thinking to new initiatives, and maybe going back to the growth phase. As any mature product or projects, maintenance and support during this stage, and re-engaging the community, because could be the case, and in my opinion, it will be the case during the maturity to have a kind of low engagement in the communities. So this could be one sign, and re-engaging the community might postpone the decline. Then during the decline, to understand the context, why the decline happens, maybe testing a new use cases, and again going back, if will be possible, to the growth phase. And if not, to prepare for what it's unavoidable, prepare for legacy and sunset. And here, preserving the legacy, mitigate the negative impact, maybe finding a place for this work, because maybe it was invested a lot of work, I don't know, being involved on college and educational entity to propose them to be used during the educational curriculum, I don't know. So everything what is written here, it's also inside of the documents I shared with you. It's a draft still, so open for your comments, for your feedback. And yes, that's it. And thank you, Alex and Silona, for your hard work and your cooperation.
Thank you, Bogdan. I would like for everyone to know that this is part of the stuff that's we're feeding back into the entire ecosystem lifecycle portion. So we're going to be taking like some of the different things that he's mapped out and sit there and show how it applies to the 4 stages that we're talking about right now and who owns what at each phase. And so, because one of the important owners is going to be the open source committee, to basically making sure through the entire life cycle phase, we're doing things well. So thank you so much for that. And like I said, it's going to be incorporated into that mapping that we're doing of the entire thing. So thanks, Bogdan.
All right. If nothing else there for framework, we'll move along to Christian on incubation.
Yep. So I had an early access review of the framework thing. So I did get some comments the last working group we had last week on incubation, but Now seeing the life cycle come to frame, I'm going to take the incubation and tailor it to this new subset. And that way it gives you the detailed process of the incubating, growth, and maturity stage, and how the selection and the transition criteria in between. So that'll be the next working group cadence to go through that.
We do have to be careful with that, Christian, because it does overlap with some of the other committees, because we are talking about the ideation portion and the productization portion. And so the incubation stuff kind of ends up floating between some of those. But what we can do is make sure that when they're doing those different pieces, that they understand the needs while they're going. Yeah.
I figure if you tailor it to a general enough case, we can add in the extra special variables at the end of it, because there's going to be multiple pipelines that come through and multiple committees that review, that initiate projects into it. So,
yeah, no, definitely. It's just, I feel like one of the things that, I'm trying to help groups figure out different focuses so that we can get it all done and not have like a category that's like left off. So like I was talking with the earlier group in regards to membership and community about the prioritization and talking about meta practices and prioritization. And so I'm actually going to create up a deck for them to sit there and say, these are all the different kinds of styles that are typically done. And then like we also need to be talking about specialization and like for like the working groups and things of that nature, because we're going to have this special interest groups that basically talk about the ideation, productization, and like the needs concept. But we need to have developers and open source developers talk about it more on the productization aspects, like in regards to the working groups talking about the doability of something, right? Because people can come up with great ideas that seem awesome, but that doesn't mean we can do it or that we can do it within a budget. So, and that's going to have to be, open source in the working groups going through those different pieces. So we'll have to like talk about that. And then also probably the hardest one that we have to look towards open source for is the observation aspect, because for us to get the benchmarks done, we have to have certain levels of observation. And of course, if people are doing open source, much easier than if they're proprietary. So
completely agree.
Being sneaky there.
That's it for right now for incubation. Establish the framework, come up with a general use case, then tie it with all the other factors.
All right, so one more. I realize this did not make it onto the agenda, so I apologize for that. I'm going to take that as my bad thing. But Christian and or Ronald, do y'all want to give any input as far as the commercialization or working utility working group that is still in its incubation stages?
So there is a commercialization aspect going on. That working group's going to become open here shortly, but it's in the bootstrap phase of trying to find out general use cases to try and build utility for Cardano, and just a bunch of people ideating a pipeline phase and potential reviews cases to try and propose projects and help make Intersect a broker for these connections. That ties into open source is going to help with the development side, and we'll get projects up and running. This will focus more onto transactions and stuff like that on the back end. So,
all right, thank you. Any questions or other inputs for any of the working groups before we move on to OSO real quick? All right. As far as any updates from the open source office, the one that I can provide right now, I did not get full clarity quite yet on working groups and special interest groups, but again, I will continue on that effort. I'll work with Adam as needed here, as that might influence some of what's going on with policy. So we'll look to kind of streamline what we can define. I think those subtasks may even become special interest groups, but I'll look to see if those are going to sit on the same level as the working group, or if the design is to be inside of that. So we'll work through that. And I'll give Christian the next one here as far as our pilot.
Yep. So we've had the strategy reviewed by Intersect internal stakeholders, and they wanted to propose an amendment to the open source committee, which is to hit more on the community collaboration pillar. And basically what it is the goal that we want to add is trying to get a community member to make a change directly into mainnet and going through a process of testing that. And this kind of ties in indirectly with our maintainer diversification initiative, but this just explicitly spells it out. And so what I'm trying to do to prove this is this piece right here, which is doing our open source pilot. How do you truly measure open source status or Cardano to make it more truly open source? And the first priority is doing the maintainer thing, which is not taking any of the current builders or core devs and trying to bring in someone from the community. Adam volunteered to be our guinea pig, and I needed to get a maintainer for Cardano addresses. So we've worked with the TSC and got agreement to do a 30-day trial on this. All the testing criteria is in that, and I'll share the slide after. But we're going to be going through, there's going to be some SIP95 integrations and then some BEC32 pieces. And this also allows us to partner with the CF because they're going to own the Haskell code. Adam will help us with TypeScript and the JavaScript piece. And the idea is to get a merge review done by Adam and then also have Adam's code integrated at some point. And that just is a small piece that tests that we got a community person in a maintainer role as a proof of concept. And then we also have the diversification of expanding our list, which ties to our current piece with the strategy. And so I'm going to go through and find out where our current suppliers are that are maintainers on projects and work on the transparency for that. So it doesn't just appear the IOG umbrella, but it highlights our current contracts with people like Tweed, Galois, Well-Typed, and showing more of that diversification, but also put it into a formal language and contracts that these are maintainers for this and they help with this piece. And that'll help tie into the governance policy piece. But the second priority goes to the bigger picture. And this is testing open source maturity in a pass-fail use case scenario. So what we're doing is taking 14 different areas of where potentially failures or good open source environments address this, and going to use Core Cardano as a meta project and look extensively through different use cases to do a simple pass-fail. Here's a given when then. We analyze it according to that criteria, and either we passed it or we failed it, and that'll give us at least a good letter grade associated on whether we have a good open source practice or not. And all of this combined will help us prove at least the use case that Cardano has done better than just putting our code on GitHub. And my goal is to get that review done and published before the end of Q2. So that's the update, and that's why I was proposing putting this line here about a community member getting a Trojan to mainnet as an extra goal associated with this, if no one has any objections.
So Lona, you had some input there?
Yes. So this is great. This fits in really well to what we're working on in regards to the core infra roadmap. One of the things that I'm trying to do is map out current state. And this directly applies to that, Christian. So this is beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope to steal it from you immediately. With credit, of course. You know, I always say where I stole things from. But yeah, no, that's perfect for some of the, don't you think, Sam? Because I think Sam's on this call too. For some of the stuff that we're
I think it's perfect. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we want to get more community involved in the maintenance of core. The one thing I would stress is that in addition to doing the JavaScript pieces with the cross compilation and everything for Adam, I think it's also important to see him touch some of the Haskell code as well as do reviews of some of the Haskell code, basically to show the maturity to be able to take over maintenance of other Haskell repositories, or if not Adam, someone else in the community that's interested in doing so.
Yeah, I think one thing says, you know, it's a good start, but we should be careful. So I think what we mean by getting something onto mainnet. So, for example, Cardano addresses, I think, is an off-chain utility that doesn't actually have any, it doesn't affect the on-chain behavior. So, you know, if we want to have something that is on chain, we should also identify in the slightly longer term, you know, what that's going to be.
Yeah. And the idea for this is at least to trial the process, and this also helps enable our contribution ladder, because here's a good trial case, and then you can put that user journey together, and then we can start taking insights from this and applying it to the other projects, with security in mind, of course. Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on this as the guinea pig in question. The reason we're focusing my role on the TypeScript and JavaScript side of this particular library is because this is a co-owned and maintained repository with the Cardano Foundation, who doesn't seem very keen on sharing their Legos at the moment with anybody that's not a member of CF or IOG. So we're trying to play nice with them on this particular one as a test case. But yeah, absolutely, I will be happy to submit, you know, reviews and everything else, whether it's on Haskell code or TypeScript as part of this trial. So that's what we're trying to do, is really define what does a maintainer actually need to do in this scope, and what expectations do we have, both for, are they actively maintaining, and, you know, kind of get a good job description of what we're going to expect in the Cardano community from a maintainer. So,
Especially when you got 3 different parties involved.
Yep.
But that's it from my side. Actually, quick
Well-
round of hands. I think everyone's in favor. Are we okay to make that amendment to the strategy?
I actually just put it out in the chat there. So I wanted to make sure that we could get, if I could just get a quick response, either a Y or an N. Nick, Sandeep, Ronald, Adam, Marcin.
I don't know if Adam has
myself
to...
for an agreement. I get maybe. Well, no, this is a strategy update approval is what we're looking for, because we'll update the strategy on Gitbook. And
yeah, does Adam have to abstain from this one since he's directly involved?
I wouldn't think so.
Just kidding.
We can make that core Cardano code, not a problem.
Yeah. But I think this also helps Intersect sell itself at the AMM, because now we actually did something that tests our open source. And I already know we're going to fail some of those things off the bat, because I don't think we have a product bug bounty at the moment, and education and training something that has to be built. So if I get a C, C's get degrees.
Okay. Did we get enough for a consensus there? Ronald or Marcin, did y'all have an opinion, yes or no?
Yeah, I'm generally in favor. I think the language, like, I don't know what encompassing a full stack approach means in this context.
I can remove that.
So you know, simplify it maybe a little bit, but in general, the principle seems fine.
Okay. I'll bring that back to you and Sandeep before final adoption. But as long as we have the general idea approved, we'll move forward with that. Okay. And I guess that's going to close out old business here. So we'll go ahead and move on to Sam Levis here for Matterbridge.
Yeah, so I'll keep this nice and quick, because I know people don't like hanging around listening to me talk about things that might bore them for a long period of time. We piloted about 2 years ago now. We've been piloting using Matterbridge to connect Telegram and Discord channels. This came up when I saw that basically we're canceling all the Matrix channels, and I was like, well, instead of canceling the Matrix channels, would it make sense to basically expand this pilot a little bit more and actually start using it for more than just SPO public testnet? Maybe do some Slack integration with Intersect's Slack instance and whatnot. So basically, you can have communication across multiple different communication systems, basically, and everyone sees what's being said. So I just wanted to float that idea out to people. If people want to know like how it works, I'm happy to show some config files of how it works and everything. But rather than saying, oh, we're only going to use this one platform, maybe it makes sense to basically say, you know what, we're going to support the platforms that people are using, and this is how we're going to make it work for everyone. That's all I have to say on it. If anyone has any comments, questions, I'm happy to respond.
If we're in consensus, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm going to take off one of my hats and put on another hat in regards to affiliation. And Leading Bit Solutions has been deploying Mattermost with infrastructure as code to the cloud for almost 4.5 years. So I highly recommend it. You get complete control of your data, and you don't have to worry about being mined by OpenAI, which is about to start happening in Slack. So Slack is going to be mining your DMs here coming real soon. Yay. That's just fucking lovely. And so that's one reason why I say don't do Slack. I did, by the way, I did mail Discord to ask them about that. And they said that they were not changing their policies on it, and that they are not going to be giving away that data to be mined by any LLMs in any time in the near future. So they were pretty adamant on that. So you're safer with Discord, just letting you know, but I vote for Mattermost.
Martin?
We had some discussions about Mattermost quite some time ago when people were really dissatisfied with Slack. Every now and then people are dissatisfied with the current tool. And one very interesting argument that popped out from one corner was that, well, with Slack, it's more difficult for the company to actually ask for data on you, because they need to ask a separate entity. While if this is owned by a company that you're working on, it really depends on the company policy and how it's being behaved. If we trust the company, probably do, then it's fine. But it's like a rather interesting interesting thought, like where is the right, I don't know.
Sandeep?
Yeah, just to be sure that we're on the same page, what Sam proposed was Matterbridge, right? It's a bridge.
So Matterbridge is a part of Mattermost. Mattermost is basically the full communication platform and whatnot. I've used it a couple times. I've ran a couple instances myself. But you can use Matterbridge without Mattermost. That basically allows you to say, hey, there's a channel here on Discord, and hey, there's a channel here on Telegram, and I want all things on Telegram to show up on Discord and all things on Discord to show up on Telegram. And you can also do that with Slack. You can do that with Matrix, a number of other different plugins. So yeah, I was just suggesting Matterbridge for now. I would absolutely support going to Mattermost and having a Mattermost instance for the Cardano community if that's what people wanted to do. But I was trying to go the easy route and basically say, let's just meet everyone where they're currently at, rather than saying, oh, you got to go here now to chat.
Solana?
So I wanted to say what Marcin was doing. That's something that I keep asking for funding on. Maybe the next Catalyst I'll be well known enough that I can go for. But one of the things that I wanted to do was do enterprise search that is actually holds chain of custody and permissioning in the blockchain for the individual data. So that when you do things like pull down the DMs or do any of those kinds of things for doing that type of work, you take them and you encrypt them, so that you don't have these issues. So you constantly pull it off of whatever tool it is that you're using and put it over there, so that you don't have to worry about some of the aspects that you were talking about. I haven't gotten that in the past 1.5 years, but I'm working on it.
This is also like very interesting in case of like there is a let's imagine there is a security vulnerability that only like 5 people know about because they're discussing how to fix it, and then actually having an encrypted channel where we can be sure that only these 5 people have access to it, not some person that is managing Slack or has access to the like an admin in the Slack company that is taking care of the instance. That would be a great advantage to actually securing ourselves.
Sandeep, I didn't want to lose track of you. Did you have something you needed to add?
Yeah. My question was again about the MetaBridge. And so suppose that is approved by the community, then who will manage that infrastructure? Would it be Intersect? Would it be community? Or how would that work?
Yeah, so the quick answer on that is I was looking at either a 2-week or a 4-week period for everyone to conduct their research, or rather gather their thoughts. We could have a discussion about it, and then beyond that, we as Intersect would take that and escalate it on our side to see if that's something, or see what the route is for us to get that implemented. Adam?
Yeah, I was going to ask kind of a similar question to Sandeep, but also, I mean, it makes sense. Intersect is going to need to own the Intersect communication channels, and that's why we have staff and a budget and everything. But Marcin actually raised like a really good point just now, which is particularly for the Security Council and whatever communication channels they're going to use, whoever the admin of that channel is that gives people permission needs to also kind of be on the Security Council. So we have a little bit of a chicken and the egg scenario with whatever comms methods that group is using to ensure that there's nobody that's outside that can peek in, even just under the auspices of, oh, I'm just an admin, I'm just here to support, while you still have visibility into those security channels. So we actually need.
I mean, what we've got at the moment on that is that it will be the security manager will be responsible for those channels. We may, and we're not wedded to using any existing solutions. We might do something as the security council gets to sort of direct the security manager to do that, but it doesn't have to be the same channels as everything else. The internal security discussions can be held elsewhere if necessary. But yeah, the idea would be the security manager would be, would also have responsibility for sort of setting those up.
So in short form there, basically, I would coordinate with Nick and Matt, and we'll take those. Intersect would have to take those discussions internal to figure out what the best platform is, because right now even Discord wouldn't work, because Discord is open to, there's a section where it's open to verified members, and then there's a section where it's open to everyone that is Intersect. So in short form, that may require a different conversation, but we would have that, or I would assign that to Nick as he's taking it kind of here to determine what's going to be the requirements or guidelines on that.
Yeah, and Discord is so easy to get the permissions wrong, and then all of a sudden you just accidentally clicked one checkbox and revealed a bunch of sensitive channel to every public person that is in that chat. So I think it's particularly for the Security Council and their comms, we need a more locked down and rigid communications platform to ensure that we're not leaking.
Yeah,
and
actually, use case there.
And for the same reason, any kind of bridging between platforms is also not a solution for security discussions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
you wouldn't want to bridge the security channels.
I think
exactly.
the security comms will basically be sort of managing the council via the manager will effectively manage their own channels. So we should make sure that there's a notification channel to deliver security messages, and that might be an email, but we could also consider bridging. But yeah, for the internal things for both for the Security Council and the basically issue channels, war room channels, they will be managed separately And it will be up to the security manager to basically set up that infrastructure as necessary.
Yeah. And I can attest to yesterday when we did the Discord migration this week, permissions weren't set up correctly. And there is if y'all missed it, a quick chance to grab $50 from someone before we ban them for hyperlink spamming. So.
All right. Well, not to cut anybody off, but we'll close this matter down for now. What we can do, Adam and Nick, maybe we'll do a separate meeting, but maybe Adam for policy working group we'll discuss a little bit more on that so that we can bring something back formalized either in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks here, so we can get an overall committee approach to that, and then again we can take that up as Intersect to make a decision. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We'll move along here then. Nick, briefly, you wanted to discuss archiving communications. Again, this might be best. We're running short on time here, but you just want to quickly put the idea out there.
Yeah. So as I say, do it. Basically, just the thing is, given that things are getting moved around, comms-wise, the question is, should Intersect as a whole, and it may not be the responsibility of this committee, have a policy on comms archiving and record keeping, basically. Do we want to make sure that we keep track of things? And if so, we need to, somebody needs to ensure that that kind of stuff gets put in place. So yeah, maybe a topic for later, but something, if Christian thinks it's the policy technical working group, that might make sense.
Okay.
That was it. We can defer it to next time if necessary.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll touch back any input from you, and then of course looks like that's going to Adam once again. So next on here, Intersect members area testing. Next week we're going into the beta phase or the Bravo phase of the. Anyway, the next phase of beta testing for our website for the members area. Those of you that have a seat on the open source committee will be approached separately, either in a separate meeting or via email. We're still working out the details on that. But basically, you'll be given some test information to log into the members area with the idea of you being able to provide us back information on bugs, fixes, or anything that's not working correctly. So more to come, but just letting everyone know that there is a phase of testing going on, but those with seats will be contacted separately here. Okay. Next week during consensus, we're Christian, or not next week, 2 weeks from now. Christian and I are going to be at consensus. I'm still going to do everything I can to host what can be as full of a meeting. But I would just say keep that in mind when it comes to your working groups, and make sure that we've got something that's either in short form, or if there's something that needs to be discussed, that we highlight what that is so that people can come back to you. Christian, go ahead.
I was going to say, chances are, because I think Friday is more of a low day, we should be able to hold it. But obviously, if anyone's at consensus, feel free to come meet us too. We'll have the booth and things, but would love to meet everyone. I know we'll be local in Salona's area too. So
I'm not attending, but I'm attending a bunch of the free events.
The after parties are where the real conversations are held.
I've got a list.
But I'll be arriving Monday. I was gonna see if you wanted to get barbecue Tuesday for lunch or so, if you're available.
Sure, we'll figure something out.
I'll be there Tuesday as well. So.
But it does leave the conversation. Do we want to hold the meeting that Friday, or it's up to the committee if you want to almost, I guess that means almost a month off, give or take, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts? If not, we'll keep it as is.
We move it to the 7th.
That could work too.
I could switch my 1 week.
Okay, we can do that then.
All right, I'll make that happen.
Thanks, sir.
Anything else open forum wise? Okay.
Thanks,
Well,
Alona.
got a
put
lot
joke
working.
earlier.
What's that?
Thanks, Alona. Put a joke in earlier if she wants to say it.
Which one?
It was the doctor one about C's.
Oh, doctors. When you got a doctor that gets all C's throughout medical school, doctor. Sorry, what do you call a med student who gets all C's throughout medical school? Doctor. Yeah, that was earlier when you were sitting there saying all C's is fine. That's why we do Agile, isn't it? We can keep correcting ourselves and learning from our mistakes faster.
I've just learned when people say agile, they mean waterfall and sprint. Cindy, you had a
Yeah, I had a question. So the migration and making all the repos open source from the Intersect side, is that fully complete? What's the timeline on that?
Yes, actually, let me give an announcement on that too. So I think Matrix, everyone's moved over. We migrated to keep the same instances that were reflected there. And if no one has fully seen it, the space looks like this. We put everything under open source project or OSC and projects. So you have open source committee R working groups, and then you have the product or technical working groups is the word for them. But these are the core tech stacks related to core Cardano. And they are doing this in parallel. So there's the technical working group function where we're taking the existing product tribes IOG and now they're including the community to get that knowledge sharing going. And this will eventually connect into what Salona's doing with backlog and things like that, or ecosystem. I don't know what the word is, but it has a parallel complementary thing of holding the meetings associated with these teams in accordance with our governance policy. So it's similar to what Marchin's been doing with the 50-50 split, where you talk about future improvement, the knowledge sharing, then you talk about repo activities. So this is just bringing in the next group of those. So, yeah.
All right. Unless anybody has anything else, we'll close this out and we'll see everybody on the 7th. Again, OSO at intersectmbo.org if you need anything from us and you can't reach us directly on the other comms channels. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate everybody. And just thumbs up. We've almost done a year come August for all of us. So
Yeah.
It's been a March.
Cheers, everyone.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.